Up until about 18 years ago, emotional eating was consuming my life, and I was really struggling to find a solution. I woke up every morning promising to be better, and I went to bed every night deflated over my inability to get a handle on my behavior with food. After trying numerous popular methods for restriction and weight loss, I finally discovered the world of eating psychology, and that's when everything changed for me. I was able to trick my brain into stopping emotional eating, and it changed my life for good. And since then, I've helped hundreds of people overcome emotional eating and lose weight so they could be free. In this video, I'm going to share powerful tricks with you to help you on your way to freedom. I'm Lori Montry, trauma-informed eating psychology coach. I help people overcome emotional eating, binge eating, and chronic dieting by getting to the underlying root of their challenges. Restriction, willpower, and shame will not work, but I know what does. I used to think I was my brain. I thought when my brain said, must have ice cream now, I had to do what it said. I had no idea that I had a choice and that it was possible to override my habituated brain. My training in eating psychology taught me that I could be in charge of my impulses and my desires by creating new neurological pathways that support the actions I wanted to take. This allowed me to be present with the urges to emotionally or binge eat without having to act on them. So I want to preface the information that I'm sharing with you in this video by saying that tricking your brain is only one key in the comprehensive solution to overcoming emotional and binge eating. The other two keys are working with your nervous system to shift out of stress and overwhelm, and learning to feel your emotions so that you no longer need food to numb, cope, or avoid them. Now, I've created a free series that goes into each of the three keys that you heard me talk about, and you can find the sign up link in the video description down below. But in this video, we're focused on working with your habituated brain, just one of the keys, so that you can create new neural pathways. And I've got an in-the-moment tool that you can use to get there. Let's begin with an understanding of how habits are formed, right? At some point in your life, you learn that food serve for more than just fuel. You found that food took the edge off emotions that felt too big to handle. It provided excitement when life felt boring, gave you a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when you needed comfort. And whenever you used food to provide for your non-nutritional needs, you reinforce the neurological pathway supporting that behavior. Every time you reach for chips or ice cream to help you cope, there was less forethought, less conscious choice, and less effort involved. This is just how we're wired. Our efficiency-seeking brains make the activities that we do most often more accessible and easier to perform. And this is especially true when the behavior is accompanied by a pleasurable sensation. Having an efficient brain is really amazing, right? It's what helps you brush your teeth every night and perfect your golf swing. But you may not fully appreciate your efficiency-seeking brain when you're trying not to eat ice cream in front of the TV every night. Since your neural pathways are responsible for your behavior, one of the keys to changing your behavior with food is to form new pathways that support not using food to meet your emotional needs. Until now, you've approached change with food in the opposite way, right? Such with a diet. You try to change behavior at the behavioral level by attempting to override the existing pathways rather than build new ones. To be successful in changing your behavior, you have to build a new path first. The new pathway for your desired behavior will allow you to change at your core rather than just using your unreliable willpower to white knuckle your way through urges. Change is successful when you focus on building the new path instead of fighting the one that's already there. Take Pam, for example. One of Pam's unwanted habits with food was eating treats in front of the TV most nights of the week, even though she vowed repetitively to stop eating after dinner. She wanted to feel better. She wanted to lose about 25 pounds. So cutting out her nightly ice cream would be an essential step towards meeting those goals. Despite her morning promise to do better, she found herself on the couch with her spoon in the ice cream tub night after night. So frustrated, feeling out of control, she reached out for help. And we approached Pam's unwanted behaviors from several avenues, but our starting point was her habituated brain. Pam was caught in what we call the habit loop. The habit loop is when we encounter a cue, which leads to a familiar routine or action, followed by a reward. Cue, action, reward. The cue for Pam was evening time television. The action was eating ice cream. The reward was companionship, treating herself, and pleasure. The fact that Pam engaged in her evening ice cream habit night after night, it makes perfect sense when considering that her brain is wired, just like all of us, to choose what's closest to pleasure and furthest from pain. So the moment Pam felt the urge to eat ice cream in front of the TV, her brain recognized that the food would bring pleasure and resisting the food would bring pain. Unfortunately, the part of the brain that's driving Pam's behaviors here, her survival system, isn't focused on the long-term effects of eating ice cream every night. It's only worried about the present moment and her uncomfortable urge. Nearly all habits, including those that involve overeating, start to escape the present moment and help us return to a more peaceful, calm state. And to some degree, food had provided Pam with an escape from painful feelings many times. As she repeatedly turned to food to feel better, a habit took hold. Her habituated brain was now concerned with keeping her habit alive. So the urge to eat ice cream at 8 o'clock every evening, right? It's simply a thought that encourages Pam to do what she has taught her brain to do in the past. And urges, I know, can be incredibly powerful. They made me do things with food. They made Pam feel like she had no choice but to give in. And they're often so intense that we might feel like we're gonna die if we don't give in to them. Now, I know this sounds dramatic, but it's true. And the more Pam ate ice cream at night, the easier it became to do so without giving it any thought whatsoever, while she felt possessed by an unseen force that had control over her body, right? Her behavior is easily understood by brain science. Each time she repeated her nightly ice cream ritual, she strengthened the pathway associated with it. So her efficiency-loving brain decided it no longer needed to really ask her if she'd like to eat ice cream at night. Now, of course she did. Why else would she have done it so many times? Pam's primal brain was so pleased to be helping her in this automatic way. In my Freedom from Emotional Eating program, I teach a technique I call the 2-minute pause. And this technique aims to help you reconnect with your higher brain so that you can be present in the moment and not act from the habituated survival brain. Now, I dive more fully into this practice in my guide called Breaking the Emotional Eating Habit, and you can sign up to receive that guide and the other resources I mentioned earlier in the video description box below. Here's how it works. Let's say you're working at your desk or watching TV and suddenly you get a fluttery feeling in your tummy or maybe a slight sinking feeling in your chest. You aren't sure what it is, don't want to slow down long enough to find out. Instead, you're ready to head straight to the kitchen even though you aren't hungry. This is the time to use the 2-minute pause. So as I mentioned, there are 5 steps. Step number 1, stop what you're doing. I know firsthand how truly difficult it is to stop what you're doing when you feel triggered to eat. At that moment, your brain is convinced that if you don't eat, you're gonna die, right? It sounds dramatic again, but it can feel like a life-threatening moment. But you can make your pause and your ability to stop a little bit more easier by using the following 2 powerful actions. The first is to use your voice to powerfully say stop. Stop is a powerful word, and if you speak it, it has meaning. Your brain associates the word stop with an urgent situation. If you're with others and you don't want to explain why you're suddenly saying stop out loud, then say it silently to yourself with as much authority as possible. Secondly, make your stopping process a little more accessible by using a hand gesture that signals stop simultaneously. You can choose any gesture that has an impact on you. 1 or 2 hands out in front of you, a finger wag, making an X with your arms. You could pretend to hold a remote, turn off the action. Adding the physical gesture alongside of using your voice is helpful because your brain, again, associates the gesture with stopping. As part of the stopping step, I also recommend that you take yourself out of the kitchen or other triggered space and disrupt the pattern from continuing in the usual way. You may even designate a safe place to go in your home so that you can more easily focus on the next steps of the 2-minute pause. I realize that initially this process is a touch disruptive to everyday life, maybe very disruptive to your everyday life. But if you can devote yourself to consistent practice, you'll be surprised at how quickly it can bring results. Now, as a final action of this first step, pull out your phone, start your timer for 2 minutes. Setting a timer is essential because Your triggered moments, again, feel like life or death, right? Triggered moments feel like dangerous moments. Stopping yourself from eating is truly an act of bravery. So seeing the seconds tick down, it can bring a sense of safety that allows you to take that pause just for the 2 minutes. So having stopped with your voice and your hands, having put yourself in a safe place with your timer running, you're going to go through the following steps. The next step is to take your focus off the battle with food and put it on calming your nervous system. Remember that when the urge to eat hits, when the urge to eat emotionally or to binge eat, survival brain is activated and it is only concerned about the short term, helping you feel better right now in this moment. If you can regain access to the higher brain, it will help you navigate the triggered moment and make a conscious choice that feels good in the moment and an hour later. Higher brain can remind you of your long-term goals and the resources that you have in the moment. In my Freedom from Emotional Eating course, I teach a lot of tools to help you slow down and reconnect with your higher brain. But for now, you can simply use a few deep breaths, perhaps, to calm your system, help you access higher brain. The third step is to observe and recognize what's happening for you. If you can speak aloud to yourself, do so. And relate in a non-judgmental way what's going on. It's important here to stay really calm and not to judge, right? The urge to eat is a normal, natural reaction. The fourth step is to ask yourself, what do I really need? What do I want the food to do for me? Try to access the part of you that wants to eat and nurture that part as best you can. Number 5 is make a decision. Decide what you want to do. Do you want to eat or do you want to try something else? Your main goal is to just slow down. If you choose to eat after the 2 minutes is up, it's okay. Own it. Recognize it as a choice and be compassionate with yourself. So here are a few pointers for working with the 2-minute pause. Number 1, try not to abandon yourself by just putting the food in your mouth and refusing to acknowledge that you need something else. Know that in the beginning, you may not be able to wait the full 2 minutes. You may not get through all 5 steps in the 2 minutes, and all of that is to be expected. Allow this to be a practice, like learning to play tennis or learning to knit, right? You wouldn't pick up knitting needles for the first time and then throw everything away when you couldn't knit a sweater on day 1. You're going to make a couple of 3-armed sweaters, which is totally okay. Allow yourself to try the 2-minute pause 100 times if necessary. And remember that every time you even remember to do it, whether you carry through or not, you've won big. After every attempt to use the 2-minute pause, I invite you to end the practice by congratulating yourself. Even if you end up eating, congratulate yourself for going through even 5 seconds of the process. You did something commendable. Start using the 2-minute pause today. Start creating a new pathway that allows you to be conscious and mindful in the moments when your brain is telling you that you have no choice but to eat. You have more power over your actions than you may realize when you put your focus on the steps of the process instead of battling with your brain. Now remember, sign up for the free resources to get your copy of Breaking the Habit of Emotional Eating. I go into the 2-minute pause a little bit deeper there. And if you found this content helpful, click the subscribe button so that I can get you and others needing support more content. I appreciate you spending time with me and I look forward to your comments.